Hi guys, so I wanted to do a quick video on some vegetables that I find super easy to grow, some vegetables that can be easily planted in containers, as well as go over some stuff that we're going to experiment with in the greenhouse this year. And then of course, as it works, we'll let you guys know how it goes. So a lot of people are trying to grow vegetables this year themselves. Self-sustainability is kind of a big thing with this whole crisis that we have going on. So I wanted to go over some vegetables that we have found are extremely easy to grow, extremely foolproof. Because if you jump right in and you try to grow stuff that isn't easy to grow, or whatever, it's gonna kind of just disappoint you if stuff gets messed up and doesn't grow, or you kill something. So these are kind of some really easy, just basically throw them in the ground vegetables that are also produce a lot of food, which is another really nice thing to know right now. So the first one is green beans, and this goes for like yellow beans, purple beans, just beans. You just kind of throw the seed in the ground, they come up, they grow like crazy, and they produce, our green beans produced for, our first row of green beans produced for 2.5 months last year. They just kept flowering and reproducing as we picked them. So we got a lot of green beans out of just one row, and they're quick. They're a quick vegetable, so they don't take long to grow. So green beans are, super, especially good for a large family, family for four or up, and because they're producing a lot, they're producing quickly, and they're easy. It's really hard to kill a green bean plant. So I would definitely suggest new growers put in, a row of green beans. And as we go into late summer, I'll do videos on how to preserve these vegetables that you're probably going to find that you'll have extra of, so that you have sustainability into the late fall and winter as well. So lettuce, any kind of green really, but lettuce, greens, spinach, Swiss chard, kale, that stuff is super easy. It's super simple. Again, you put the seed in the ground. Lettuce, there's actually a lot of frost tolerant lettuce varieties, as well as a lot of greens like kale are fine with a frost. Kale, you can start early and you can let it go late. Those, are things that you're gonna grow half a row of kale or lettuce, and you're gonna start harvesting it, and it's just gonna keep growing, and you're gonna be like, good God, why did I plant so much of this? So again, large production, fast. Greens are super, super fast, especially lettuce, and easy, foolproof. So, and the cool thing with lettuce is, if you want to keep in constant rotation, although I've had the problem where my lettuce, I'll rotate it, I'll plant one row of lettuce, and then 15 days later, I'll plant another row. It doesn't matter, because that first row doesn't stop producing. It'll just keep going, and then I have 2 rows producing. But if you want to keep it on rotation, in case you're worried about that first row dying off after you harvest a little bit of it, or you want to switch up kinds, just go ahead and plant another row or another container of lettuce, 15 days after you start the first one, and that will kind of keep them on good rotation. Peas are really easy to grow. The thing with peas is that you just want to keep them, so they have something to grow up against, because peas will get really, really tall. They'll just keep going. You have to give them something to grow up against. You can plant them, up against a fence. You can build your own style thing. They don't take much. It's not like they're a heavy plant, so you don't need something crazy heavy to hold them up. Peas are another frost tolerant vegetable. You can plant these. We put our peas in the ground the first week of April. We didn't this year because I just forgot all about them. But every year before then, we've put them in the first week of April because peas are very hardy. And again, peas produce a lot. You just keep picking them, make sure you're harvesting on time. That's kind of one of the keys that we've found, is make sure that you're harvesting stuff as it's ready. The second you stop harvesting that stuff and let it sit, the plant goes, okay, we don't have to produce anymore, we're done. And it'll start dying. So keep harvesting, and all these things will just keep producing for you. So squash, any kinds of squash, winter squash, zucchini, summer squash, it doesn't matter. We all know that everybody always has too much squash and zucchini when they grow that. It produces like crazy. It's squash plants. We literally just throw the seeds into piles of dirt and walk away. And then we come back and, they come up quick, so it's squash. And squash is one of those things that are considered a fall harvest. However, I feel like we don't take well enough advantage of the fact that they're a frost tolerant plant. I feel like we could be planting squash plants, earlier and getting, them in the summer as well as the fall. So I think we're actually going to try to put some of our squash seeds in probably today, actually. I'm going to go throw them out in the piles and see if they come up this early, and I'll let you guys know how that works. So as far as tomatoes go, I would love to say that tomatoes and peppers are easy to grow, because they're everybody's favorites. They're what you think of when you want to plant a garden. However, they're not. Peppers, like some years, I'll just talk to somebody and they'll be like, yeah, my peppers didn't do anything this year. And everybody else will say the same thing. Peppers are, I don't even know how that goes. Our plants are doing super good, but our plants are also in a greenhouse. So hopefully, hopefully that goes well. But tomatoes, okay, so the bigger variety of tomatoes, you've really got to make sure that you keep them standing upright. You've got to make sure that you're watching them for rot, that you're watching the plants for bugs. There's so many different things that can go wrong with tomatoes. However, cherry tomatoes, for some reason, they just, you can't kill them. Cherry tomato plants, they go nuts. And again, they produce for forever as long as you're picking the tomatoes. So if you like, I plant a bunch of cherry tomato plants because, one, this year I actually want to marinate them in jars, kind of ferment them with basil. And two, because Paul and Kingston will just eat them all day. Cherry tomatoes are an awesome snack. Most toddlers love them, cut them up, sprinkle them with salt and pepper. They're awesome. So cherry tomatoes are pretty easy. So if you want to try bigger variety tomatoes, I say go for it, but make sure you know how you're going to set up a tomato cage. Make sure you read up on it first. But cherry tomatoes are a go-to for beginners. And then the last thing, this thing was kind of like, it's not something that people would often be like, oh, I want to plant that. We use it a whole bunch. We do, because we cook a lot. Like, we just make a lot of homemade meals. But bunching onions, okay? So not big onions. Those suck. Those are so hard to grow correctly. Either they come up mushy or they don't grow at all. Paul has it pretty much mastered at this point. I wouldn't dare touch it myself. But bunching onions, okay? So it's like, they're green onions, you get them at Walmart for 50 cents a bundle, whatever. We use them the same way we would use chives or anything like that. We slice them up thin. We put them in almost everything for added flavor. They're just really awesome to use. You can also slice them up really thin and dehydrate them in your oven and put them in a container and use them, you know, as an herb for cooking. And they're quick and they're easy. You just plant them in a row. You wait for them to come up. You know, they only are supposed to get like that big. Pluck them out of the ground. So much flavor added into your cooking when you have bunching onions hanging around. So those were kind of the foolproof vegetables that I could come up with. And you can do a lot with those vegetables. I know it's a short list, but you can do a lot with them. And like I said, we'll go over that more as mine start to produce. I'll show you guys what I do with them. So I have a lot of friends and family, especially friends and family that live out of state and live in dry states, that are gonna have to do a lot of container planting, which is, you know, honestly easier than putting stuff in the ground. You know, in containers, you kind of have a little bit more control as far as like bugs go and diseases go. It's a little bit more controlled there. So not a huge deal, and you can really, lots of stuff does fine in containers. So I did a little research as well as off of my own experience, and because we're also going to try a lot of this container planting in the greenhouse, as far as we're trying to fit as much in that greenhouse in the winter time as possible for winter production. So like cauliflower can be planted in containers just as long as they're like 8 inches deep. Like, you know, a 1 gallon, 2 gallon container, you can grow 1 plant of cauliflower. Peppers, eggplants also, like, you know, 2 gallon, some people have even done 1 gallon pots. So, you know, you don't need a whole bunch of space. You know, they're little plants, the peppers and eggplant. They don't take up a whole lot of root room, and so you can put those in smaller pots. If you want to be safe, I would go with 2 gallon, unless you've tried 1 gallon before. But, so eggplant, peppers, cauliflower, you know, 8 inches deep, you know, just enough room for them to do their thing. Tomatoes, you're going to want at least an 18-inch, you know, you're looking at like a 5 gallon pot for tomatoes. Varieties of tomatoes that do well, you're going to want to look for, a lot of seed companies put container friendly on the seed packet, but you also want to look for anything that says like patio anything variety of tomatoes is, you know, they're literally, you know, for growing on patios. So go ahead and throw those in containers. Romas do all right in containers. Cherries do fantastic in containers. Cherry tomatoes do. So just make sure that you're doing the smaller varieties. You probably could successfully grow a great big, you know, beefsteak tomato in a container, but it's going to need a lot more fertilizer, a lot more attention to get it there. Kingston Blake came in the room. I got asked specifically about zucchini, and I did look it up. Again, we throw our squash plants in a pile of dirt and walk away. So zucchini can go in a 5 gallon pot, just like tomatoes. You want to look for, I guess some zucchinis will actually tell you if they're container friendly. And the thing with zucchini is that you want to keep it pruned. You want to keep those dead branches or those yellow leaves just off. Get them out of there so that the plant is only focusing on the stuff it needs to focus on. Because you're not going to have a great big huge zucchini plant in a 5 gallon pot. You're going to get a decent sized zucchini plant that's going to want to just grow, you know, your little, you know, 6 to 8 inch zucchinis, which are super delicious still. But, you know, so a bigger pot for tomatoes and zucchini. And then with that, anything that you're putting in a container instead of the ground is going to have less space to look for nutrients. So anything going in a container, we fertilize extra. So really give it what it needs to do what you want it to do in that small space. So don't be afraid to pick up a good natural fertilizer, and make sure you're fertilizing these vegetables. Vegetables have a lot to do. They're producing, you know, food, so they need the extra nutrients, and if they're in a pot, they can't search for it. So, in the last container growing that I wanted to talk to you guys about was actually gutters. We're gonna do a lot of experimenting with gutter growing. Obviously, lettuce and greens can go, you know, especially spinach. Lettuce and spinaches can go in gutters, no problem. We have ours, and we have our bunching onions going into 4-inch gutters. We have it screwed along the side, down the middle of the greenhouse to take up space on the walls so that the bigger plants still have the floor space. We are going to try, this is stuff that we're going to experiment with, that I'll let you guys know if it works before you try it. Obviously herbs can go in gutters, no problem. Bunching onions are fine, lettuce and spinach is fine. The two things that I'm going to try and see how it goes is peas. I'm going to get some 6-inch gutters, and I'm going to try, for one thing, peas, and just build them a ladder to go up and see if I can fertilize them enough that they're fine without just 6 inches of root and still producing. And then the other thing that somebody else had success with was they got a 6-inch gutter and they grew decent 4-inch diameter. No, Mama's doing something. You can't touch it. 4 or 5-inch diameter beets. So I'm going to try beets in the gutter as well. Those are a huge hit with our customers. So we always try to grow plenty of beets. What, baby? What? I know. So that's some stuff that we're going to experiment with, but feel free to get yourself some gutters and throw some greens in there. You know, some chives or some bunching onions and some herbs. And, oh, cucumbers. So cucumbers one cucumber plant can go in a 1-gallon pot, just a little 1-gallon pot, and give it a ladder of some sort, like a wooden ladder, to climb up and produce your cucumbers. And that's literally how easy cucumbers are. They just take right off up that ladder, especially pickling cukes. You know, if you're doing a smaller variety, they do very well. We actually have our cucumbers in the greenhouse in 1-gallon pots, and they're hanging, and they're starting to vine up and around the top of the greenhouse, which is kind of cool. So, let me see. Make sure I didn't forget anything. So if you guys have any more questions, please just comment below. I'll answer you. I'll get back to you on it. I think I touched base on everything that everyone asked me for. And feel free to message me anytime with questions. We'll figure it out together if I already don't know. And yeah, container growing, easy plants that produce a lot. So I would just get started with that. Let me know if you have any more questions, and keep me updated on how your growing season is going. It's finally kind of almost there, almost that time here in Maine. So that's super exciting. And then my friends and family out of state are fortunate enough to have a little bit of a longer growing season than we do. We won't hate on them too much for that. So with that said, leave me comments if you have questions, or if you have comments or suggestions, because we are experimenting and learning a lot this year. And so we're always looking for other people's experiences as well. And Kingston Blake. So have a good day, guys. Enjoy the sun.